Welcome back to this week's episode of Monday Madness, the Monday show where I talk about anything and everything, and this week we are starting a new sort of series or challenge thing. I've got a couple of ideas of some sort of like challenge content I want to do this year. One of them is that I'm going to start upping my sewing game quite a lot. I want to learn some different techniques and some sewing skills, and there's a few different items that I'd like to make, and so I'm going to try and incorporate those skills and try to learn them as I go, and I will document it to hold myself accountable, and so you guys can laugh and hell, maybe learn with me if you want to. But the other thing I want to do is I want to up my costume planning and prepping game. It's part of the bit that I really love, and I feel like creativity is not something that I need to work on, but doing more of it is something I really want to do. And I also quite like the idea of being able to plan a concept without feeling like I also have to make it, because most of the time when I'm planning it's for my own costumes or for a commission or for something I'm making for someone else. So it would be quite nice to just come up with an idea and that's it. I can just leave it out in the ether, that kind of thing. And then while I'm working on sewing skills, maybe I can combine the two of them together and I can come up with a design and then sew through it, that kind of thing. So I'm going to start this designing a costume for a certain concept, and I'm going to start that. And it is June, so we're going to start for the month of Pride, why not? I asked you guys for some ideas over on my Instagram, and I'm going to keep asking, probably on places like my Ko-fi and my TikTok and my Instagram as well, and in the comments on these videos. So what I'll ask you guys to do is to give me a concept, and I will then come up with a design for that kind of character, or just that concept, that kind of thing. At some point I'm going to do it for the Pirates of the Caribbean musical I came up with, and I'm going to design a bunch of costumes for that. At some point I will do, at least 3 of you said to me, oh, do it for the Black Dog podcast, and that's a really good idea. I've only got like artwork so far that I've done, so I think making little costumes, that could be quite a cool idea too. And a few of you have messaged me with your OCs and your characters and said, oh, if I give you a description, can you do a design based on that? So I thought, absolutely yes, I would love to do that. However, I'm going to put some of that on the back burner because I'm going to start with Pride Month, and I'm going to start by doing a design based on different concepts of all over the world of Pride. So we're going to start with a concept of a trans costume. Now, just to be clear, this is not a costume, as in being trans is a costume you can put on. Obviously it's not. This is a costume or an outfit that someone could wear either at a event to show trans pride, or it is a costume idea inspired by like the history of transgender people and the trans experience, that kind of thing. And it's quite important, obviously, to me and to several other people, and I think it's particularly important in the world right now, so that's what we're going to start kicking off Pride Month with. And this costume is all inspired by the concept of transness, I guess. What I want to do with this is do quite a lot of research. I'm going to look into the history of trans people, I'm going to look at trans concepts all over the world, trans characters throughout stories, and I'm going to incorporate little bits and pieces of that, but obviously quite a lot of it is going to have my own experience in it as well. So if it doesn't seem to completely reflect your experience, that's absolutely fine, and what I would like is if you have any experience, either you or someone you know, put those experiences, if you're happy to share them, in the comments down below, and then maybe we can make another concept design, or you can design your own concept, that kind of thing, and we can start a whole conversation. It can be really good and encouraging and engaging, that kind of thing. Alright, so I'm going to do some diving into the history of transness. Why do I feel like I should have done this years ago? Hey, it turns out if you want to be trans, you don't have to take a test. Well, you do actually. You have to take several. Well, it's not a test. You have to see a lot of therapists and a lot of doctors, and you have to go through a lot. There's a lot you have to do, but taking a written exam on the history of trans people is not one of them. So I'm going to go and do that right now. Bear with me. I have had to pause my research for just a second because I thought this was absolutely brilliant. So I'm reading about sort of the earliest recorded trans either characters in mythology or ideas of transness, and I've got to this bit about various places in Africa, and I am just really enjoying the fact that they have like personifications of the planets, and my favourite bit is they've got Jupiter and they've got Mercury and then they've got the moon, and all I can see is Awooo. The moon is Awooo. That makes me so happy. Anyway, carrying on. Okay, so I've got a big page full of just generic shapes and ideas and stuff, so I have written down so very much. There is so much research, more than I've written down here, but essentially I've written down certain things. So we've got things from Egypt, we've got things from Africa, we've got things from, oh, this one I really like, from Ghana, with the planets, and we've got Mayan with a third gender maize god. We've got other myths and deities and gods and things about like wearing top hats and frock coats and things. We've got associations with foxes and the kitsune. This is from Japan. You've got Buddhism, you've got Hindu, you've got things from the Philippines, loads of different things, particularly like deities and stuff. You've got female maidens turning into warriors. You've got Jinn, you've got Loki, of course. You've got Australian rainbow serpents who are transgender or androgynous. You've got blue-skinned, smoky-haired demon women who will also come across as transgender. They transformed, and so many wonderful, wonderful things that I've been drawing inspiration from. Sadly, though, I did discover that the myth that Apollo got drunk and would rearrange people's genders is unfortunately not true. However, I did find this. So that's not true, but there are stories of Prometheus, no, not the one from Alien. So the Olympian Titan, who it said that he was one of the ones who helped to form humans from clay, and he stole fire to gift them and stuff. And later, it said that he would get drunk and misapply the gender. So Prometheus, not quite as fun as Apollo. I can still see it being Apollo, but Prometheus is still pretty cool. I've also included things like Peter Pan, where the fairies have canonically got different genders, and the character from The Wizard of Oz, whose name I've forgotten. I will go look that up. Although I'm going to try and lean not too far into that, because that feels like we're going into my Peter Pan content, and I've got a whole nother channel for that. But anyway, you've also got this story, which I absolutely love, and I'm going to butcher this name, which is Leucippus, Lausippus of Crete. And this is the Greek myth. So this character was born female because the father would have killed the mother and presumably the child if he didn't have a son. So the mother gave so the mother gave them a male name and pretended they were a boy, and this worked all the way up until adolescence, when obviously things were going to start to change and the father was going to notice. So the mother went and prayed to Leto, the deity, who took pity on them and granted her wish and transformed Lausippus into a male. And so transgender myth, actual thing right there, which is pretty damn cool. And then I've got depictions and emotions and imagery, just things like this that I've discovered from talking to other people and reading different stories. So you've got, particularly in artwork, lots of cages, so the outside body feeling like a cage. I can relate to that. Free flowing from within, the trans flag, of course, scars, scales, long sort of skirty wraps and into pants, that kind of thing. Tieflings come up over and over again, so I think this design is going to have horns. I also really like this. I've seen this in some artworks. Scars that turn into gills. That's pretty cool. And then the idea of clay and weaponry I really like as well. So currently I'm designing based on this sort of look, and I've also got this one which I've started drawing stars onto because I just really like the idea of having stars, partly for the sort of deities and the history and stuff, but also for the fairies of different genders and the magic of it, and then the moon as well, because I really like that there are these planets, and this is from Ghana, I think. So there's the planet of Jupiter and Mercury and the moon, Awooo, and these were androgynous or transgender. So I love that. So I'm going to include the moon and possibly some different planets and things. Now I'm going to work on what I want it to look like. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is what we've got so far. So I have tried to take little bits and pieces from so much of everything. So obviously we've got horns. I've decided to go for fairly gender neutral hair that can be for anybody. I really like long hair, but short hair is also cool. And because any of it can suit anyone, I've decided to go for a sort of longer flowy thing. I've gone for across the body. That was to mark where the chest would be. It is not to say that there are nips on the outside of this, don't panic. So I'm going across, and then I'm going for a sort of half skirty thing. I really don't want to lean into the whole half and half male, half female thing. I really don't want to do that. That's not what I'm doing. Instead, I just really love this aesthetic, and I think it suits anyone and everyone to have this sort of long, flowy one half, almost like a big flowy coat. So it could come from a Doctor Who or a Sherlock style coat, or it could come from a really long dressing gown or a really long robe or a gown itself, anything like that. So sort of a swoop of that. But then you've got the sort of pant leg as well. But instead of having pant leg, I am going for sort of wraparound. It's sort of a bit like bandages, but not quite Caleb Woodacast bandages. So it's going to go down almost like a big sort of massive fishnet, similar to this thing in the top, and it's going to come down and down and down and join into fishnet, because that's what a lot of people have said they enjoy. So I'm going with that. I've asked a few people who I know, and I've asked on my Instagram for opinions and thoughts, and yeah, that's what I've got. So I enjoy them too. So we're going to go into fishnet. I think I'm going to have bare feet, but I'm also going to have little bits of jewelry. endless amounts of jewelry, lots and lots of jewelry, so lots of bangles and beads and bracelets. I'm probably going to try and pull in some of the stuff from like Egypt and some of the ancient cultures and stuff as well, just in the jewelry bits and pieces. And then I'm thinking trans flag colors up here, and of course big loads of stars and the moons. I really like where I decided to put the moons. So I'm going to do a sort of blue skin body, and this is coming back to the, where was it? The blue skin demon women, which I just love as a concept. So the blue skin transgender demon things. So we've got demon tiefling horns already, so why the hell not? And then we've got stars, which is representing sort of the deities that have come through our history, but also the fairies from the lore of Peter Pan and stuff. And then it's going to come all the way down into the big moons on either side, because I just think it fits with that flow. And also, hips are an interesting thing for trans folks, I have discovered. No matter which way of the pendulum swing you are going in your transition, the hip area is a cause of concern, joy, any number of things. So I think it's kind of cool to highlight that area as just an area of importance. Whether or not it's good or bad, it's an area of importance. And then I'm going to keep the stars going all the way down, so it's almost getting galaxy vibes. So this is what we have thus far. All right, so this is what we have so far. I have gone with blue because I just really love that story of the blue demon women who were sort of, they could transform into stuff. So I love that. So we're going with blue skin, and of course we're going with tiefling horns because I just, yes, I feel like a lot of the characters we create for Pride might well have demon horns. So sort of tiefling-ish. I have decided no tail, but that may change. And blue skin, and this is a little cheeky little pose. And I've gone for a sort of androgy slash could be anyone body shape because I don't want to lean too much into one or the other. Of course, my bias is going to show a little bit. My end of the trans spectrum, I guess. So this is the base that we are going with. What I'm going to now do is I'm going to add a bunch of jewelry, and I think I'm going to have some in gold for a sort of callback to Egypt, because Egypt always feels very like gold to me with the sun, and I suppose they had gold jewelry too. Huh. That was accidental. I was thinking of like the sun and the pyramids and the beautiful detailing and stuff. So we're going to go with that. And then we're going to have trans flag colours, and I'm probably going to try and do some ribbons. I wonder if I've got a pen for that. I probably do. I'm not going to do the face. I am going to leave faceless because this isn't, I'm not creating a character. I'm creating a sort of like character design, that kind of thing. Can't decide on hair. I'm feeling like sort of wavy, maybe sort of long-ish. Not sure. And then we're going to have the stars going down and the moons, and we're going to have the big skirty skirt on one side, and then either a pant leg, or I might just do like crisscrossing. I'm not sure. We shall see. All right, so this is the base. Let's see what we do with it. All right, this is the design of the body. So we've got the moons on the hips, because I just think it's a very important point. Like a lot of the trans people I've spoken to, the hips are a very important moment. No matter what they are doing, they're a very important moment. Sometimes for unhappy feelings, which I think is important, because I didn't come into this trying to wipe all the sadness away and pretend. Like, being trans inherently is not always a fun experience. And I certainly wouldn't choose it. It's not a choice that you make. It is just something that you realize and then decide how you're going to deal with it in your own way. And some people don't get to do anything about it. And that's probably the saddest bit. But there is various different versions of sad. Some of the people I've spoken to, there's a sadness, particularly with family, for a sort of sense of loss of a person. Although I don't always think that that's very fair. I think that family can struggle to understand sometimes, but you fundamentally have not lost somebody because they're still here. And the whole reason we embrace the fact that people who are trans can live their actual identity is because then you don't lose them. The fact of the matter is that when people don't get to transition, you can lose them, and that's obviously worse. So anyway, without getting into all of that, there is a sort of inherent trans sadness that comes with it, because there's a lot of realization and deep thinking you have to do. There's a lot of waiting and sorting things out, and the world feeling like it's completely against you at all times. There is feeling trapped in your own existence so long. There is the misgendering, even by people who don't mean it, and that it just weighs down and weighs down and weighs down. So it can be quite a sad experience, but it's hopeful. That's what this design is. It is hopeful and full of joy and freedom and the fact that you can get there. But we cannot ignore the fact that there is sadness too. With everyone, every identity, every life experience, there can be sadness and things. But we are focusing on trans right now, so that is what I'm wanting to make sure everyone knows. There is a sadness that goes with it, and there are dark times, and there is just horrendous feelings that come with this sometimes. But hopefully this is going to end up being a hopeful design. So anyway, we have got the moons and we have got the stars, because the stars are for the fairies and the deities, and the moons are for some of the planets. I know the moon is not a planet, shush. So I couldn't. I started drawing like circles of planets. I might put some circles like in the background as planets. I just it started to look a bit polka dotty. Oh, I could put polka dots on the skirt bit, I guess. All right, bear with me. Stage 2. So I have decided to go with the trans colour. So we've got white and sort of silver. We've already got blue in the body, but I think I'll add blue in the hair as well. And then we've got all these shades of pink. I might lighten this up a tiny bit. I'm not sure. No, it's in shadow. That's all right. It's a concept, it's fine. I've decided to cut quite high on this side so that you can still see the moon. I might actually edit the moon so you can see it a bit more. But I also just really like this crisscross sort of lacing. It's almost like the opposite of that cage feeling. So once you've broken out of that cage feeling, you're no longer feeling trapped literally by your own body. And instead you've got these sort of soft ribbons and pieces of fabric that you have chosen to do the crisscrossy shape. It's no longer a cage and it's more a feeling of freedom. So I really like that. And also the fluidity of the movement, because along with the trans experience, you can feel a little bit of the fluidity even as you're going through the experience. Being trans doesn't necessarily mean you immediately go from 100% of one to 100% of the other. There is a lot in the middle ground as well, so I wanted to go with that. I've also decided to go with a sort of what feels like a more, I guess the word would be inclusive top. So we are covering the nip nips, but that's not because this is a feminine necessarily, because this is also a sort of high fantasy-ish look, so it could also be a little bit elven or fey, so anyone could wear this if they wanted to, and it can fit for anyone on any aspect of the trans ratio. That's a word, why not? So that's what we're going with, and also I wanted to be able to see all the stars. All right, next we have added ribbons. I did have a ribbon brush. I was very excited about this. So I have added the jewelry now. So we've got the gold for Egypt, accidentally for Egyptian style. I did have a quick little look on some museum sites and I did find some like sort of gold and rose goldy jewelry. So I quite like that. And I've also gone for the trans colours on the upper arms, on the sort of ribbons or extra bits of jewelry, bangles, whatever you have, and they can dangle and twirly, twirly, twirly. I might make them even longer than that actually. Not sure. Demon horns. I think I'm going to commit to hair now. Bear with. Okay, so we have gone with hair. I'm not going for hyper realistic, so I have gone with the swooshy, and I have made it bright turquoise, the greeny bluey, because it's not. I don't want everything to be literally matchy trans flag colours, but I do love this colour, and I think it goes well with the skin. So we've got the stars, the moon. I've edited the moon a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. And I've done polka dots. I mentioned this earlier. So we have gone with polka dots because I think it's quite fun just to add a little bit of texture. So this is so far, I think I'm going to add some planets in the background and do some backgrounding. I lied. I added more stars first and some more jewelry. So we've got some gold in the stars because I just thought I needed some more. I've got some gold outlines around the moon, and I've added some little highlights and lowlights and some more jewelry and some jewelry down here and some more gold. So yeah, now we do the background. And this is the final picture. So we've got a sort of sky of a sort of light purple in the background because I think that combines all of the colours on the trans flag. So we've got the blue, the pink and the white. So I turned it into this and the sort of clouds because of the sort of feeling of freedom and everything that people have described, having this sort of freedom and this truth. Truth was a word that kept popping up. I did a little sort of survey thing on my Instagram and people would send me words of like how they think it feels. And then I have done the planet shapes as well. I did them as less like physical planets and more sort of like splashes of almost magic. So yeah, this, I'll put it up on the screen properly in a sec. This is my finished trans identity. I'm going to go with the word costume because I am trying to get better at costume design, but it could also be a character design or something. If you would like to make this, feel free to do so. Please tag me if you do. I'd love to see it. Also, feel free to use this as a D&D character or an OC or anything that you would like to. I feel like I should name this, but I feel like I'm going to let that be something that you guys can do. So yeah, this is my first offering for Pride Month and for this creating costume series. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And what shall I do next Monday? I am trying to stick to things in the realms of Pride, so you can give me an identity you would like me to do, a sexuality, a gender, anything like that, or at the end of the month, I think I will just do one for the concept of Pride, so like the rainbow, that kind of thing. So yeah, this it be. Thank you for watching this episode of Monday Madness. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.